what do you do when you're mentoring? And I'll go to U15 AAA because these are more knowledgeable coaches, but they don't see the game that way. They're not able to manage. They shorten the bench to try to win, rather than manage the bench to develop and educate to win.
Well, I can't speak to that because I haven't mentored anybody at that level.
Yeah.
But were I given the opportunity to do that, I would stick with my theory and my processes. That if you want your team to improve, you have to help your individuals improve and understand the game better and how they fit into it,
Yeah.
where they're best suited to fit into it. If you want long-term result, that's what you have to do. You can get short-term result, but it's going to be short-term and it's not going to get you to the holy grail that you're after, in all likelihood, and you're not going to help your group moving forward. Well, Mike, you have to preach that. You have to preach that whole theory, Wally. And again, going back into what you're contemplating, if you're not going to start that process with Girls Hockey Calgary, who is? So
we've lost. Okay.
Did you catch that, or?
Yeah, we got her now.
Okay. I was just saying that with Girls Hockey Calgary offer that you have, if you're not going to do that and start that process or make a good, strong attempt at it, who else is going to do it?
Yeah.
That's, to me, that would be an incentive.
Mike, I want to welcome you. We've been talking about mentorship, and I think that's what you do. You're trying to influence and mentor. And yesterday I was offered a position to do it formally, and I'm reluctant because as soon as you're paid for something like that, there's expectations. And if the expectations are outcome oriented, then what you're doing as a mentor is a little more difficult if their expectations are. And so I don't know what I'm going to do in this role, but it's really interesting because it's going to be everything I've always done, but I've only done it with the U13 level with Tom's team and one other team. And now they want to do it they're expanding to 3 teams, but they also want me to do the same thing with the 3 U15 elite teams. So I'm going to be experimenting with that. And when you came on, Rick and I were talking about the biggest dilemma is really shortening the bench to try to win and not developing people. And part of that is, we think part of that is we just don't want them yelling and abusing people. But I find that shortening the bench is abuse. And when it occurs to the degree that it occurs, in a way, it just turns kids off. Parents don't say anything because the so-called ones that want to win all the time think this is the way you coach, and it trickles down from the NHL and pro hockey. But we're in the development business, so I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Rick. First, can you speak to what you're trying to influence as a mentor and what I brought up in terms of?
I mean, Mike.
Mike. Okay, Mike.
I was going to chime in anyway, but yeah, no. So it's funny. I mean, so I would say that that's kind of a position I'm in. I guess mentorship is kind of goes out the window with me a little bit because I am paid, to work with these organizations. So, when I came up as kind of architect role, it wasn't. I wanted to be very clear that I wasn't mentoring the coaches and the programs as much as I'm giving my opinion and guidance as to, the different options they might have, and then it's their choice, right? I mean, it's funny that I run into this in my own. So when you're an outsider, you get to obviously throw a lot of grenades in there, right? And then you kind of step back and say, okay, well, I hope you guys can clean it up. And that's kind of what I experienced the most in the youth hockey world, because, these organizations and the people that are in these organizations they're much more intertwined in the culture and the community, and they're mostly moms and dads, and like they have to be able to live within that organization, where somebody like me kind of can come in. I don't live in that organization. Like I'm experiencing right now. I run a youth lacrosse program in my town. And when I say I run it because it's the same as most of the hockey programs I work with. The 3 or 4 board members that want to be involved don't really do anything. They have a lot of meetings, but nothing gets done. But when I bring in like best practices or what we could be doing and how we should be developing and looking at the long-term processes that we have, and how do we get more kids playing at every level, so that when it comes time where they have to make decisions on who should play, who shouldn't play, discipline, development, all that kind of stuff, we have enough kids in the pool to help make that happen. And I think we get. I mean, I obviously I like, what this group talks about a lot, and that's this fair and equal, playing time and not shortening the bench. But I think a lot of the reasons that happens, Wally, that I see, not, in real life, is that the programs don't develop the structure and expectations around what that means. Like it doesn't, like my kid doesn't get equal ice time and equal playing time when they don't show up and put the work in. Like, just because you're on a team doesn't mean that you get equal time if you're not putting the work in. And I think what's happening now with our youth hockey culture is, because kids come in for 5 or 6 months, they just expect, okay, I'm on this team, I'm playing all the time. And nobody develops. There's no, Rick, I think you were hitting on it a little bit when I first popped on, but there's no, like, nobody thinks they have a role. Like, nobody understands how a team is built. Like, they don't understand that there are certain players I'm putting on a team because you play this role for my team. You're not all equal, nor should you be. But I do agree at the youth level. I mean, we should and allow all the players to have the opportunity to develop roles. But I think what we're missing right now is that not nobody. Many of the people we're working with don't accept a role, and frankly, and the coaches and the organizers don't articulate and present what roles there are on a team or in an organization. So I definitely experience it every day. I mean, like I said, it's easy for me to tell a couple of coaches, hey, I think you should do this. I think you should do that. This would be great. We should be doing this with the programs. But it's hard to implement it because they're the ones that have the boots on the ground. They're the ones that have to actually make those decisions and look people in the eye.
Rick, I wanted to get you to talk to Mike and share your thoughts on coaches can manage the bench, but they don't. They shorten it. There's a difference between managing the bench to build a team and build confidence, transfer belief, and develop, and still win. And coaches don't have the experience. So what they do is just put out their perceived best players. So Rick, can you talk about the art of making everybody feel valued and developing them? And sometimes some are in, some are out. They've earned their roles, and they may have an off day, but coaches can't do that. We can. So Rick, would you talk to that again? Okay.
I'm not sure what you're looking for, Wally, but the first thought that comes to mind is that number one, you have to talk to your group. You have to, right from the get-go, at the start of camp or at the time of final team selection, you let everybody know how you're going to proceed for the season. That it's an open discussion. We will put people, give them equal opportunity. Let's put it that way. to play in all situations and to take the lessons that are being taught and execute and perform and earn their spot. And I usually did that up till Christmas time, the way it worked out in our situations. And after that, it was on full notice that in certain situations, other people would be called upon, depending on what the game situation dictated. And you know, so there you're going, like, who's going to be first power play, who's going to be first PK, and quite frankly didn't really exercise that 100% of the time. It again depended on the game situation. If you were up a lot or down a lot and it didn't really matter, just let them play. But an important thing that I felt that we did was when a player was guilty of committing an on-ice error, you know, a lot of guys just won't put them back out in that situation. Late game situations, he can't be on the ice in a one-goal game and so on. Our approach has always been, or at least evolved to become the way we do our business, is we'll put him back out there. We'll deal with it in practice. We'll talk about it, and we'll put him back out there and let him see if he's learned anything. If he did, great. If he didn't, then we've still got work to do. And I've been in many occasions criticized for that. Why would you have that guy out there, or that girl, as the case may be? How am I going to find out if he's learned the lesson or not? You have to give them the experience. And once they do, that's confidence builder. That's confidence for them. It's confidence for you as a coach. So now you have one more tool in the box that you can use. And again, you know, the talking, if we're going into a game situation, provincial final, let's say, we'll have that discussion one more time with the players. This is what we've talked about. And you're all equally important, but you cannot all equally contribute. So if the game situation dictates that, we're going to deal with it. And at the end of the game, if someone has been short shift, I'm in the hallway. I don't leave the building till we've had that one last conversation.
Yeah.
Hopefully you understand what went on there. And if they do, great. And if you've had that dialogue all year long, it has always gone well, in my experience. They don't have to like it, but they understand it and they can accept it more readily.
Mike, I just want to relate my experience with coaching. It was high school football. I took on a team because I took a university class in 12-man football, and I played 6-man in Saskatchewan and volunteered to coach a team because there was nobody else would do it in a high school. And I played everybody. And there were 47 players. And there was a coach that one of the coaches of the senior team, he had a red team. They played both ways. He had a white team that could play sometimes on offense, sometimes on defense. And he had the blue team, which didn't play. And usually they were your first year players. And I worked with him for 1 year. And the guy was a very small, aggressive young man who played in the Sugar Bowl in football. And he kicked a kid at practice, and I walked away. I quit coaching with him because he was too competitive for me. But I rolled everybody, never won a game that year. It was the best year coaching I had because we went from like 47-0 to being up 15-7 in the 7th game against the best team and lost our 7th game. But it was the most satisfying game for me because nobody quit. And I admitted I didn't know what I was doing after the first loss to the kids, and they were going to learn, and so was I. And then I got to coach the senior team, won 3 city championships with that philosophy. 12 offensive players, 12 defensive players, and there were backups that got in. all the time, not, regularly. And we got to one playoff in the fourth season. In the city finals, I decided to go two ways with my best athletes, my halfback and my fullback. So two defensive players didn't get to play. We lost. I learned a lesson that day. We'd won the other way, and here I sort of succumbed to the score clock and the idea they could do it. So since that day, I've always had that philosophy, and I've carried it to the extreme where I don't do what Rick's does. The nuances of, hey, this guy's going. This is a good matchup. Here's somebody put out now, and I found in one junior A game, we won the provincial championship that year here in Alberta. But leading up to it, I had 6D, but I played 5. We won the game, and I called the defenseman that didn't play into the room and said to him, look, I don't know why you didn't play, but I know that we were going with 5. They got into the game, and I just stuck with it. I want you to know that you'll play next game. But he was so appreciative of being talked to. And I noticed him in the room when the whole team was celebrating the win. He was in the corner with his head down. So I had the trainer bring him in to have the conversation. So those conversations, Rick, for you and the kid at that level were huge. And in minor hockey, they've got to sort of be confident enough and trust you and respect you enough to share the story and the explanation with the parents and accept it. But it's the art of coaching and competitive hockey. So I'm really looking forward to next year and my experiment. Mike Peter Whitney was on and Hal Terse about mentorship. Peter's doing the same thing in the association. He's going to do the mission statement exercise with the coaches and then with the parents separately. And that's what I'm going to do with the girls hockey Calgary. And my plan is to sit in the stands with the parents during games. Once they've written their mission statement exercise and put it on the fridge, I should be comfortable to sit with them, talk to them, and talk to the coaches. And I'm not even going to mentor X's and O's. If they want ideas, I'll wait for them to come to me. Right now, I just want to make sure the developing people, give them ideas about how they can develop them better. And if they open up more and want more, they can ask for more. But right now, my only focus with 6 teams is doing it, this exercise with the coaches, with the players, or with the parents, not even with the players. The coach can do it with the players if he chooses, but I'm just going to go to games occasionally. And when I do, I'm going to sit with the parents, mingle with them, talk to them during games, before and after, and just be that conduit of what we're doing and the way we're doing it. So, Rick, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to clarify, just in case there's a misunderstanding on my earlier comments, that the idea of over managing the bench, let's put it that way, didn't happen all that frequently, but it was out there that everyone understood what may or may not happen. Quite frankly, in most cases, because of the process, we were well in control of situations game-wise. So it wasn't that frequently that we had to do it. It wasn't an every game situation. Most games were run on a rotation basis, more or less. But it's in the environment. It's part of the learning. If the kids want to move on with their hockey, they have to learn that this is going to be part and parcel of what they're dealing with. To me, it's part of the development, the growth, and the understanding of what they're getting themselves into. And again, I'm speaking there more of AA, AAA, elite hockey, if you will. At the minor hockey level, that applies that much less. But
Yep.
still, I think there's a life lesson to be learned there, that we're all not capable of doing everything. We need to know what our roles are, what our capabilities are, and be the best we can be in those situations.
See, Rick, I, when you say minor hockey, I call that anything under junior.
Yeah, I realize that, Wally.
And so the developmental side of making sure they play and they develop, and getting ice time, extra ice time for the right reasons, and taking it away for the right reasons, behavioral reasons, like the behavior of. I watched the AAA midget final in Calgary, and in the third period, both teams shortened their bench. The fourth line didn't play. In the double overtime, the top two lines played all of both double overtimes. Had one of the teams used their third and fourth lines selectively, they would have had energy to play at a higher level. But fortunately, what's happened now with the best teams in this league playing in the final, they both shortened the bench, so it didn't make any difference. The same best kids that you could see, yeah, they're going to be junior players going out, and they're going to go up in junior, and they're not going to get to dress games. They're going to be given 6 minutes of ice time. They've got to adapt. So I think they're being overplayed to the detriment of their lifelong careers. So, Rick?
Just you talking about the midget final, it reminded me of two MAC semifinal games that we won in overtime, and in both winning goals were scored by what would be considered our fourth line at the time.
Yeah. Well, I'll share Jordan's story of the final game against Red Deer when he won the provincial championship last year. He basically rolled the lines. He managed the bench. Everybody played. The other team, they were into a two-line philosophy, and it caught up with them. And I think the score was tied after the second. And Jordan went into the room and said, "Girls, everything's good. They're going to be exhausted, and we've got energy." And he ended up winning that final game. That's the bottom line: is when you overplay people, they stay out too long, they're not really playing hockey. It's shinny, might be advanced shinny, but the shift length is going to weigh on them. The lactic acid builds up, and they can't play. They can't perform. So shift length, it's a part of the value of respecting the team and yourself, and knowing you need to recover to be your best in the next shift. And I've seen it happen at U13 hockey, where they overplayed the best players at so many levels. They don't realize, yeah, they might win, but that's not the way to run an organization and to treat kids. And I think parents know that. 90% of the parents know that. So